Day of next week. The Fine Arts Secretary, Miss Katie Potter, will be in the classroom administering that quiz to those of you that are remaining. That should be 10 of you. I will have 5 of you with me on the road. So, I will start by reminding you that the very final page of this chapter, page 65, is a great way to prepare for most of this quiz. I'll hold it up here. I don't know if you can see it or not, but there are 2 tables here. There is the top table refers to triads and what they look like on each scale degree in major, and what the triad type is on each scale degree in minor. So you would do well to make yourself a blank table like this and fill out the triad types for major and minor. That may seem simplistic, but really that is the sum and substance of what this chapter is all about. What type of triad comes about on the first scale degree in major? So we're talking about a major triad. What type of triad comes about on the first scale degree in minor? All right, it's minor. So you could compare and contrast perhaps from the top section of the table down to the bottom section. So again, the top chart, this chart up here, has to do with triads. This bottom chart has to do with 7th chords. What does the 7th chord look like on the first scale degree in major? It's a major 7th chord. How about in minor? All right, in minor, it is a minor 7th chord. And so you could make yourself a blank chart once again and list the 7th chord types on each scale degree. They are a bit trickier down here than the triad table was, because you have some interesting terminology next to the Roman numerals. For instance, the 1 chord is a 1 major 7th. All right, so capital Roman numeral 1, and then the big M and 7. So a common mistake would be putting capital Roman numeral 1 and 7. Well, that says major minor 7th. That wasn't the type of 7th chord that came about on the first scale degree. So make sure you put capital Roman numeral 1, the big M, meaning major 7th on the outside, and 7. So there's a lot embedded in that Roman numeral that you need to just understand. Okay, and then the same thing, well, you have a minor 7th chord on the 2nd scale degree, so you have little 2 and 7, little 3 and 7 on the 3rd scale degree. On the 4th scale degree, you have capital Roman numeral 4. And remember, I like lids on my Roman numerals, the top and the bottom. So I'll just draw that on here right now, since he did not do that. We'll put the top on there, we'll put the bottom on there. Same thing for the 5 chord, the top and the bottom. So we don't want to lose any points. So uppercase 4, big M 7. That's a 4 major 7 chord. And then we have the 5 7. So uppercase 5 and 7. That's the major minor 7th chord on the 5th scale degree. Minor 6 7 chord. And then the 7 chord is half diminished in major. So you get the little 7, the half diminished circle with the slash through it, and 7. So these need to be memorized. I will just kind of play my hand right now. I may or may not have 2 empty charts on the quiz that you just have to fill out with the type of 7th chord on each scale degree, and the type of major, and the type of 7th chord on each scale degree in minor. So spend the time, work these tables a couple of times, and make sure you can list them by memory. This has to be practiced. It isn't the kind of thing you can just sit down at the quiz and say, well, I think it's this, I think it's that. These have to be memorized. So, a good way to review for this quiz cutting right to the chase, is to make yourself two empty tables. One for triads, one for seventh chords. And simply fill in the Roman numeral that describes the triad on the first scale degree of major. So that'd be uppercase 1. The Roman numeral that describes the triad on the first scale degree in minor. That'd be little 1, and so on. Okay. We spent quite a bit of class time talking about the triads in major and minor. And on Friday, I'm making this video on Friday, but on Friday in class, we spent the time discussing seventh chords in major and minor. And so I would say probably the more complex portion of the chapter has to do with the seventh chords. So if you go to page 62, he summarizes with a chart what the seventh chords look like in major. Okay, the major 7 ones are the ones on the first and fourth scale degree. So big 1, M7, and 4, M7. I'm talking about this chart right up here. All right, so the major seventh chords are the 1 major 7 and the 4 major 7. That 4 should have a top and a bottom on it, by the way. All right, the major minor seventh chord occurs on the 5th scale degree. And that should have a top and a bottom on it too. None of these minor 5 things. All right. Then the minor seventh chords occur on 2 and 3. Okay, 2 minor 7, 3 minor 7, and 6 minor 7. And then finally the half diminished seventh chord occurs on the 7th scale degree. All right. And then of course we don't have any fully diminished seventh chords in the major mode. So he shows you these through a chart. He also shows you what the seventh chords look like on each degree of the scale. And I drew this here just to remind you about the Roman numerals, the ones on the 5th scale degree, the 1st scale degree, and the 4th scale degree. Make sure they have a top and a bottom on them to indicate that you're talking about major. So here's the common error I will see on quizzes and stuff. People will say, oh, 5-7 chord, and I'll say no, that's minor 5-7. If you mean major, you make sure and put the top and the bottom on it to indicate that you mean major. Okay, so this just has to be reckoned with. You just need to play these and spell these and make sure you can make sense of them with the chart. And then, as I mentioned, go to the back of the chapter where you have these empty tables and make sure you can fill in these tables with triads and seventh chords. Okay. The diatonic seventh chords in minor are built on the common minor chords. For instance, when he taught you triads, he said, remember, the triads in minor are going to be built upon the harmonic minor scale. So, there's the first one. There's the second one, a diminished, the third. Minor. Major on the 5th scale degree. Major on the 6th scale degree. Diminished on the 7th scale degree. And minor again on the 1st scale degree. That discussion was had over back on page 57. So if you look at the bottom of page 57, the notes of the harmonic minor scale are circled. Da 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 da. Those are the circled chords. Those were the commonly used chords to harmonize. All right, so those are the types we're going to use for triads. We're also going to find that is true for seventh chords. He's going to show us what the common seventh chords are in minor. He's going to use that same scale. Okay? C, D, E flat, F, G, A flat, B natural, then C, All right, so he's going up the C harmonic scale, or C harmonic minor scale, and stacking up seventh chords on each scale degree. As I'm sure I made a big deal about in class, the two oddballs are the 5/7 and the fully diminished seventh, which should both, well, this one should have a top and a bottom on it, as you know. All right, but the oddball chords in this minor scale are that 5/7 chord and the fully diminished seventh chord, both of which you have to do something to make them turn out right. So I'm going to put a little arrow here, a little arrow here, reminding you that these are chords that you have to, let's say, doctor up in order for them to come out right. We didn't doctor anything up in major. We stacked up the seventh chords, and these were the types we got. They were invariable. They were always the same. Well, in minor, when we got to the fifth scale degree, all right, if we stacked up a chord on the fifth scale degree in C minor, C, E flat, G, B flat, that was the type we got. All right? Well, that wasn't the common type. I'm sorry. That's not the chord on the fifth scale degree. Here we go. G flat, B, D flat, F, the minor seventh chord. That was not the common type. This was the common type, the major minor seventh chord. So it had a B natural in it instead of a B flat. This is the chord you will get if you misspell the 5 chord. You'll get a minor 5/7. Well, that was not one of the common types. They got a major 5/7 by including a leading tone. So C minor's leading tone is B natural. And what I've encouraged my students to do is make a little bubble here off to the left. And you just simply put leading tone of the key. The leading tone, I can't do this upside down, here we go. The leading tone of C minor is B natural. Okay, that's a reminder for you in spelling this chord and this chord. Both of these chords need to have that leading tone included. Now, there are other chords that have B flats in them that we're not going to do anything about. For instance, the 3 major 7's got a B flat in it. We're not going to change that to B natural. The 1/7 has a B flat in it. We're not going to do anything to that. But it was the 5 chord and the 7th chord that were considered dominant chords that led you back to the tonic. And that's important because the leading aspect of that 5 chord is accomplished through this leading tone. B natural is the leading tone. And the fully diminished 7th chord is also considered to have a dominant quality because it's got a leading tone in it, a B natural. You know that because in minor modes, the leading tone's a half step below the key. So you have C, then B natural is your leading tone. So in order to spell this 7th chord right, it must, or this 5/7 chord, it must have a raised leading tone. In order to spell the 7 diminished chord right, it must have a raised leading tone. Now that sounds like a handful of stuff to remember, but this was just the common chord they used on the 5th scale degree. All right, in order to get back to C minor, we had to have a leading tone in there, which brought us back to C minor. Without that, there's the minor 5/7. That doesn't propel you back to tonic like that chord does. Okay? So it made sense that they used chords with leading tones in them for the 5th scale degree and the 7th scale degree. All right, so I put arrows over those, and over the top of them I put leading tone. All right, so both of these chords are sticky wickets in the minor mode. So whenever you have a problem to solve in minor, you need to make sure if it's on the 5th scale degree or the 7th scale degree that that chord has a leading tone.